occasions where Milton Grimes got him out of a mental institution because he was having bipolar episodes.
So basically it sounds like his attorney was telling everybody one thing and telling him another.
Perhaps. I mean, I'm not really sure, but he definitely gave him some drugs to keep him silent. He definitely went for a defense of PCP, him having used PCP.
Instead of the insanity that he said he was going to go for.
Right. Well, I don't know that he said he was, but basically that's what he led him to believe, that he was going for an insanity plea. Definitely led him to believe that by telling him we have to make it look really bad. Right. And by not allowing him to testify. He told him not to testify, and he kept him very drugged up during the trial. Big Lurch also says that his roommate, Thomas, testified against him and testified that Big Lurch had asked him to leave the apartment, and that wasn't true, and that Thomas later said it wasn't true. But they didn't get to hear that. The jury, I guess, didn't get to hear that, or whoever, the courthouse didn't get to hear that was a lie. He said that several witnesses were told to lie on the stand.
Who said that?
Big Lurch said that several witnesses were told to lie on the stand.
Yeah.
And that they did so. Also, it turns out that the DNA, Big Lurch also says that there was like a particle in his stomach of human flesh that didn't belong to him, but then he also said that it was ruled out that it was hers. It was ruled out that it was. I guess eventually he said that it came out that it was his own contents of his stomach. It wasn't anything to do with her. But also he said he had a dog on the scene. So the dog was a pit bull, blue-nosed pit, and he said that the bite marks on her cheek weren't from his DNA. And then also the handprint or fingerprints on the scooter that hit her in the head, that they believe that is what caused her death, that those prints were not his.
Yeah.
They were not Big Lurch's. And that there were footprints also that were not Big Lurch's, and there was also a shoe found that didn't belong to Big Lurch. And also his clothing, he had stripped down. They don't know where it was. They couldn't find it in the house. And he also mentioned that it's a dope house, but there were no drugs or guns in the house when the police got there. So it appeared that the house had been cleaned up. The only thing they found was a body. So none of that made any sense. So if Big Lurch is out on a corner, naked, covered in blood, screaming, holding a lung in his hand, and Alyssa sees him, calls 911, when did they have time to clean up the apartment?
Right.
Who cleaned it up, and when did they have time?
Right.
So it's very interesting. Even Tanisha's mother doesn't believe that Big Lurch committed this crime.
Right.
She believes he was set up.
Yeah. And
she sued, or rather she attempted to sue Stress Free Records, and also she also had I can't think of the name of it, the other record company. She also had Death Row Records involved in that lawsuit, but Suge Knight claimed he didn't know Big Lurch or any of them, so they dropped his name off the lawsuit. But apparently nothing ever came of that lawsuit. So it's really kind of a sad story as far as, all that's concerned.
So why does Tanisha's mom think that Big Lurch is innocent?
Because she believes that the boyfriend is actually the real killer. Because
whose boyfriend?
Tanisha's boyfriend, who was also smoking the Sherm with Big Lurch, Thomas. Because Thomas was abusive and beating Tanisha, and she had her bags packed and was ready to leave him that day.
Wow.
So it was that day that she was going to leave him. Also, Milton Grimes, the attorney for Big Lurch, never contacted her and never took her statement.
Wow.
And she wanted to go on stand and tell, her side of the story and let everyone know that she didn't believe that he did it, and that she believed that it was Thomas who did it.
Right.
She also believed that they were pushing him, probably from what he has said, that they were pushing him to be more and more hardcore, and to be, because of the genre of music, to really be more and more hardcore. And also, they put out his album 2 years later. They put out the album. They changed the name. They changed the name to It's All Bad, and they put a picture of Big Lurch with a platter and a skull on the platter.
Oh my gosh, that's sick.
And they never even got his consent to do that. They just did it, and they're not getting any profit. None of his family's not getting any profit from the album.
Right, it's just going on to the record label.
Right.
Milton
exactly.
Grimes, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, there's a lot of evidence out there that says he might have been set up, or there might have been somebody else there at the time. I mean, how can you really say that it was him?
It could have been the boyfriend and him.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
It doesn't make sense. And then he had his dog there, and there's other DNA. I mean, really.
Well, did they check if the dog bit her cheek?
They didn't check any of it. No, they just...
Or ripped open her chest. His pit bull could probably do that. That's just...
They didn't check any of that.
It's crazy.
No, it's unfortunate. But all that to say, this is the story, of Big Lurch. At this time now, he's serving life in prison. I believe he's at Folsom Prison. And at this time of his life, he's just trying to learn about the law, He's praying and he's writing books, and he's still writing music. So it's still like a question. It's up in the air. He gave his case number, and I'm going to look that up later so I can learn more about it. More about his
And it's
case.
just sad too, because they probably looked harsher on him. 1, because he's African American. 2, because he's on drugs. And then 3, because of the music that he makes. And it has nothing to do with...
I'm glad you brought that up, because also the music had not been released yet, those songs.
Right.
And Milton Grimes literally just gave up the music. He gave it up so that they could hear it in the courtroom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's really suspicious.
To make him look guilty, almost. To make him look
more guilty. Like,
right.
He gave up that
Isn't that his
song.
own attorney?
Yeah, that's his attorney. So his attorney gave up his own, the music that was not even released yet. And then he released the album 2 years later with those songs on it.
That's
songs
sad.
about Jeffrey Dahmer and, the dark music.
What an attorney.
Yeah, friends like that, who needs enemies?
Right?
So that's the story today of Big Lurch. And also, let's just, one thing I want to say is we don't want to leave out the fact that someone lost their life. And she was only 21 years old, and she was the mother of 2 children, an aspiring model. And what her friends say about her is she always had a smile on her face for everyone. So God bless the family of Tanisha. And one thing that Antron Singleton, which is Big Lurch, said is don't use drugs. The bottom line is don't use drugs. And he also said stay in the game and read a book instead. Now for the second half of our story, Alyssa will be sharing a true crime story that's also related to PCP abuse.
In September of 2012, in Camden, New Jersey, a 31-year-old man named Osvaldo Rivera, suspected of being high on wet or PCP-laced marijuana, broke into a home where a 6-year-old boy named Dominic Andujar and his 12-year-old sister Amber Andujar were asleep and being babysat by their older sister, who was asleep upstairs. Amber was asleep on the couch downstairs, and she was awakened to Rivera covering her mouth, and she said he whispered, "If you scream, I'm going to slit your throat." She was violently attacked and sexually assaulted repeatedly. Her 6-year-old brother heard the attack, and he raced downstairs. He ran by the assault, went and got a knife from the kitchen, and came back and started cutting at Rivera. He was hiding behind an old mattress against the wall. He was arrested and questioned. During questioning, he asked, "How bad did I hurt them?" In July of 2014, he was convicted and found guilty of murder, attempted murder, aggravated sexual assault, felony murder, burglary, and 2 counts of endangering the welfare of a child. He received a sentence of 110 years. In March of 2015, DNA evidence linked Osvaldo Rivera to a September sexual assault case involving a 2-year-old boy that happened a month prior to the murder of Dominic Andujar. Rivera admitted to this and received an additional 15-year sentence to be served concurrently with his 110-year sentence. In October of 2017, Rivera tried to appeal his conviction, arguing that the trial judge didn't instruct jurors that they could find him guilty of lesser charges. His attorney had asked jurors to consider aggravated manslaughter because her client was intoxicated at the time of the murder. Judges dismissed Rivera's appeal. They said a defendant can't request an action at trial and later disagree if the outcome wasn't favorable. Thank you so much for listening to our first episode of Dying to Get Well.
And please tune in again for our next episode. We'll be dropping this week. And Alyssa's going to be telling her story of homelessness and addiction. It's a very empowering and compelling story. Thank you so much.
Bye.